Good evening, my friend, and welcome to Pillowside Night Stories. Tonight, I'll be keeping you company as you drift gently towards sleep. You don't have to do anything clever. You don't have to solve a single problem. All of that can wait for the daylight. For now, all you need to do is lie back. Let your body sink into whatever is supporting you, and allow my voice to carry you far away from the busyness of today. If you like, you can think of this as your own private ritual, a little doorway you step through each night to tell your mind and body it's time to rest now. So before our story begins, take a moment to make yourself as comfortable as you possibly can. If you're lying in bed, let your pillow cradle the weight of your head. Let your shoulders relax a little deeper into the mattress. Let your jaws soften so your teeth are not quite touching. If there's any light in the room that doesn't need to be on, now is a good time to switch it off or turn it down until the space around you feels gentle and safe. If you're listening on your phone, you might choose to set a sleep timer so that when the story is over, your device can fade quietly to silence without pulling you back from sleep. And if you find these stories help you rest, you're always welcome to come back to Pillowside Night Stories whenever you need a soft voice and a gentle place to land. Now, let's give your body permission to slow down. Notice where you feel your breath tonight. Perhaps at the tip of your nose, perhaps in the rise and fall of your chest, or the gentle movement of your belly. Without forcing anything, let your next breath come in a little slower and drift out a little longer. In and out. Imagine that every time you breathe in, you're gathering fresh, cool air from a quiet winter night. And every time you breathe out, you're letting go of the weight of the day, the small frustrations, the tight corners of thought, the to-do lists and worries that don't belong in this moment. In fresh, clear night air. Out everything you've been carrying on your shoulders. You don't need to push anything away. You're just letting it drift to the edges of your attention like snowflakes melting as they touch the ground. As your breath settles into its own rhythm, I'd like you to imagine that tonight your mind is going on a little journey. Not to a busy airport or a noisy train station or a crowded tourist street. Tonight, we're going somewhere millions of people dream of visiting, but very few ever see in quite this way. We're going to London. Not the rush hour, packed, commuter, horn-honking London you might know from films and photographs, but a softer London. A London that belongs to the night shift workers, the street lights, and the snow. We're going to a neighborhood with pastel-colored houses, narrow streets, small cafes, and the faint promise of music behind old wooden doors. We're going to Notting Hill on a snowy night when most of the city is asleep. But a few gentle souls are still awake, quietly keeping London running, while the rest of the world is dreaming. And as we walk through those streets together, you may find that your own thoughts begin to slow and soften until they drift, just like the snow falling through the London sky. Imagine for a moment that you're standing inside a small, warm flat on an upper floor of an old London building. The radiators have been ticking softly, and the air inside is pleasantly warm. The kind of warmth that makes windows fog a little at the edges. You're standing by one of those windows now, palms resting lightly on the cool glass. Outside, the evening has folded itself into a deep navy blue. Street lamps cast soft halos of golden light onto a row of houses painted in gentle colors. Powder blue, pale pink, soft cream, sage green. Like a box of pastel chalks someone carefully arranged along the street. Earlier, rain had wetted the pavements and darkened the bricks. A typical London evening. But sometime between the last email you sent and the moment you washed your face and decided you were done with the day, the rain turned to snow. You didn't notice it at first. Snow can be shy like that, especially in a city that isn't expecting it. But now, as you stand at the window, you can see it clearly. Flakes swirling lazily through the cone of light beneath each lamp, settling on car roofs, perching on wrought iron railings, softening the sharp edges of stone steps and curbs. The street below your window is a quiet one. A few parked cars line the side of the road, their shapes becoming rounder as the snow gathers. The branches of a small tree outside the building are collecting a fine white outline, like a pencil sketch being gently filled in. A single person walks along the pavement, hands tucked into their coat, head bowed against the cool air, footsteps muffled by the growing layer of snow. There is no hurry in their stride, only the unspoken agreement between a person and a winter night to share the street for a little while. Behind you, the flat is already prepared for sleep. Bed turned down, pillow waiting. But for now, you linger at the window, letting your eyes adjust to this slower, softer London. You can feel the slight chill of the glass under your fingertips and the reassuring warmth at your back. Two worlds at once. The cold beauty outside and the safe nest inside. After a moment, you step away from the window and reach for your coat. It's hanging on a hook by the door, still holding the faint smell of outside air from earlier in the week. You slide your arms into the sleeves, feeling the familiar weight settle across your shoulders. Your scarf is waiting there too, soft, knitted, the color of warm oatmeal. And you loop it once around your neck, letting the ends fall where they like. By the door, your most comfortable boots stand ready, their soles firm and their insides lined with a little extra softness for nights exactly like this. You slip them on and feel, for a moment, that particular quiet anticipation that comes just before stepping out into snow. You don't need a destination. You don't need a schedule. You're simply going for a walk through Notting Hill on a snowy London night. You open the door of the flat, step into the stairwell, and make your way down past the framed photographs and potted plants your neighbors have placed on the landings. The air grows cooler as you descend. At the bottom, you push open the heavy front door, and London greets you in a soft hush. The first thing you notice is the way the snow changes the sound of the street. Where rain would make everything hiss and splash, snow absorbs the noise, turning sharp clatters into muted thumps and distant traffic into a gentle, far-off murmur. You step out onto the pavement and feel the slightest crunch beneath your boots. Snowflakes settle lightly on your coat, on your scarf, on your hair. You tilt your head back for just a moment, letting a few flakes land on your cheeks, cool and fleeting. The houses on your street seem to be leaning in toward one another like old friends, sharing a quiet secret. Windows glow with lamplight and television blue, each one a tiny world of its own. In one, someone is curled on a sofa with a blanket and a book, turning pages slowly, occasionally glancing up at the snow outside. In another, a family gathers around a small dining table, finishing late cups of tea and sharing stories from their day. Further along, a cat sits on the wide sill of a bay window, tail wrapped around its paws, eyes half closed as it watches the flakes drift past the glass. You begin to walk, letting your body find a natural, easy pace. The cold air clears your thoughts without jolting you awake. Notting Hill, in this hour, belongs not to crowds and cameras, but to the few who are still quietly moving through its streets. And to you, breathing in the soft stillness of a city under snow. Down the road, where your street meets a slightly wider one, a red double-decker bus pulls up to a stop. Its interior lights cast a warm glow through the big front windows, turning the snowflakes in its path into little sparks of gold. Inside, at the wheel, sits Oliver. Oliver has been driving the night bus for years now. He knows these routes, the way some people know the lines on their own palms. Every turn, every traffic light, every pothole he instinctively avoids to keep his passengers swaying gently rather than jostling awake. When he was younger, he thought he would prefer the day. The busy hours, the full buses, the chatter of people on their way to work or school. But over time, the city taught him something about itself at night, and now he wouldn't trade his shift for anyone else's. He likes the way London slows down after midnight. He likes the way the familiar landmarks, church spires, corner pubs, tiny parks, the curve of Portobello Road take on a new softness when lit from below by street lamps and from above by falling snow. He likes being one of the few quietly ferrying people through the sleeping city like a shepherd guiding a small flock through a winter field. Tonight, his bus is not full. A couple sit together, near the middle, heads tipped toward one another, speaking so quietly that their words are lost in the low hum of the engine. A man in a dark coat sits by the back window, watching the snow trace streaks and curls across the glass. Near the front, a woman in a nurse's uniform rests her head against the cool pane, eyes closed, hands still folded around the strap of her bag. Her name is Raj. She has just finished a long shift at the hospital where beeping monitors and fluorescent lights have been her stars and moon for many hours. She has walked down those corridors so many times tonight that they seem to have worn grooves into the soles of her shoes. But now, sitting here on Oliver's bus, she finally allows her shoulders to drop a little. She watches the snow on the other side of the glass and feels the gentle rocking of the bus carry her away from the bright intensity of the ward. She likes this part of her routine, this soft-edged journey home through a city that seems to be tucking itself in. Soon, she will step off the bus near Notting Hill Gate, walk along quieter streets, and slip into her own small flat, where a kettle and a soft bed are waiting. But for now, she lets the motion and the muted lights cradle her, half awake, half already drifting into dreams. Is less than #2. 4# is greater than. A few stops later, another passenger steps aboard. A woman in a long wool coat, cheeks pink from the cold, a stack of books in a canvas bag slung over her shoulder. This is Amelia. If you could follow her back along the path she took to reach this bus stop, you would find a narrow side street lined with shop fronts. A bakery closed for the night, a florist with buckets of empty vases, and halfway down, a small independent bookshop with a bell on the door. That bookshop is where Amelia spends her days, her evenings, and sometimes her very late nights. She has just finished shelving the last of today's deliveries, straightening the displays, and switching off all but one of the lamps. For a long moment, she stood alone in the shop, looking at the rows of spines, mysteries and romances, histories and cookbooks, adventures and memoirs, and felt that particular quiet joy that comes from caring for so many stories at once. Outside the window, London's snow had begun to gather on the sills and railings, casting an extra hush over the street. Amelia pulled on her coat, wrapped her scarf twice around her neck, turned the little sign on the door from open to closed, and stepped out into the night. She knows Notting Hill in all its moods: crowded festival days, sunlit Sundays, rainy weekday mornings. But there is something about a snowy night that turns the neighborhood into a secret version of itself. The pastel facades of the houses glow softly under the street lamps. The famous market road, normally lined with stalls and footsteps, sleeps under a thin blanket of white. And somewhere not far from here, she knows there is a place where the lights are still on, the kettle is still boiling, and someone keeps the door open for people like her, like Raj, like Oliver, like you, who are still moving gently through the city, while the rest of London is already dreaming. In one of the quieter corners of Notting Hill, a small cafe keeps its lights on a little later than most. By day, it serves strong coffee, flaky pastries, and hurried lunches to people passing through. By night, it transforms into something softer, a refuge for night workers, late readers, and anyone who needs a moment of warmth before heading home. From the outside, the cafe is modest. A simple glass front, framed by dark wood, a hand-painted sign above the door, and two small tables on the pavement, now wearing round hats of snow. Inside, the air is fragrant with coffee, fresh bread, and the faint sweetness of cinnamon and vanilla. Soft yellow light falls from pendant lamps onto mismatched chairs, scuffed but sturdy tables, and a blackboard menu with chalk writing that has blurred slightly in the humidity of the room. Behind the counter, wiping down mugs and straightening plates, is a man named Arjun. He has worked here long enough to recognize the regulars by the way they push open the door, the tilt of their shoulders, the way they look around for an empty seat. He knows which of them prefer tea to coffee, who likes their milk steamed extra hot, and who will always ask for whatever you've just baked if there's any left. Will lied. He also knows the quiet stories that cross his floor each night, too many to tell, but all of them stitched together by the same thread. People who have been giving their energy to the world all day and all night, and who now need a little warmth before they can rest. Tonight, as snow falls steadily past the cafe windows, the bell on the door chimes softly. Oliver, the bus driver, steps inside, shaking a light dusting of snow from his coat before closing the door carefully behind him. He pulls off his gloves, tucks them into his pocket, and feels the welcome rush of warm air on his cheeks. "Evening," Arjun says, his voice low but bright, already reaching for a mug. "The usual." Oliver smiles, the kind of smile that unfolds slowly from a long night's concentration. "Please," he answers, his shoulders dropping another fraction of an inch. As Arjun begins to prepare his drink, the bell on the door rings again. Amelia enters, scarf still dusted with snow, bookshop canvas bag slipping slightly on her shoulder. She stamps her boots lightly on the mat, breathes in the warmth, and loosens her scarf. There is a moment of quiet recognition between her and Oliver, two people who have seen one another here often enough to exchange a small nod. They do not need to know each other's full stories for this place to feel shared. Amelia orders a cup of tea and a slice of whatever cake remains on the counter. Tonight, it's something with spices and a glaze that glints softly under the lights. She carries her tray to a table by the window where she can watch the snow continue to decorate the street. A few minutes later, the door opens again to admit Raj, the nurse. Her steps are slower than they were at the start of her shift, but there is a lightness to her face now, that quiet satisfaction of work completed, of patients safe and sleeping, of alarms silenced for a few hours at least. Arjun greets her with the same easy warmth, and she orders a hot chocolate, extra marshmallows, the way she always does after a particularly long night. She chooses a seat not far from Amelia's, and as she sits, their eyes meet. They smile, the kind of simple, sleepy smile that passes between strangers who have one thing in common. They are all, in their own ways, on their way home. In the corner, near the back, an older woman sits with a knitted hat in her lap, hands resting for a moment before she resumes the slow, meditative movement of yarn around needles. This is Margaret. Her flat is just around the corner, up a short flight of steps, in a house painted a gentle lavender. She's lived in Notting Hill long enough to remember when these streets were quieter, when fewer cameras were pointed at the houses, when this cafe was a different cafe with different chairs and a different name, but the same warm light. She likes to come here on nights like this, when snow changes the sound of the city and the streets feel like they belong mostly to the people who live here. She doesn't need much, just a seat, a mug of something hot, and the small comfort of being surrounded by other gentle, tired souls who will soon be heading to their own beds. From the window, Margaret can see the pastel houses opposite, their steps and railings now traced with white. She watches as a bus rolls by, interior lights glowing, then disappears around a corner. She sees a figure in a coat walk past, canvas bag at their side, likely someone from the bookshop, she thinks. She notices a woman in scrubs and a winter coat cross the street toward the cafe. She doesn't know their names, but she knows what it is to hold a night in your hands and then gently let it go. Inside the cafe, spoons clink softly against ceramic. Pages turn as Amelia takes out a book from her bag, though her eyes wander more often to the window than to the words. Oliver wraps his hands around his mug, feeling the warmth seep into fingers that have been gripping a steering wheel all night. Raj takes her first sip of hot chocolate, and for a moment, her shoulders finally drop all the way, as if someone has quietly removed a backpack she forgot she was wearing. The snow continues to fall. London continues to breathe. And for a little while, this tiny corner of Notting Hill holds them all. Bus driver, bookshop keeper, nurse, longtime resident, and cafe owner in the same small pool of golden light against the dark. Eventually, as all nights do, this one begins to loosen its hold. Oliver finishes his drink, thanks Arjun, and pulls his gloves back on. There will be a few more hours of routes and roundabouts for him yet, a few more quiet passengers to carry home before he parks the bus, hands over the keys, and steps into a morning that will smell faintly of thawing snow and fresh bread. Amelia closes her book, tucks the last crumbs of cake onto her fork, and wraps her scarf back around her neck. She will walk home through streets that are now just a little wider than when she left the shop. Later, when she lies in bed, she will think briefly about the shelves waiting for her tomorrow, the customers she will help, the stories she will recommend, and then, like the turning of a page, her thoughts will slip quietly into dreams. Raj lingers longest, savoring the last sweet sip of chocolate from the bottom of her mug. Her night has been full, machines and monitors, laughter and tears, the steady rhythm of caring for people when they are at their most fragile. As she steps out of the cafe, she takes in a slow breath of cold air, feeling it clear the path between her mind and her body. Soon, she will be home, shoes by the door, uniform hung neatly, blanket pulled up to her chin. She will sleep deeply, knowing that for now, others will take her place in the bright corridors, and that London, in all its complexity, does not rest on any one person's shoulders for long. Margaret drains the last of her tea, slides her knitting back into her bag, and rises slowly, feeling the familiar language of her joints. Outside, she turns her face up to the sky one more time, watching the snowflakes fall past the glow of the cafe sign. She has watched many winters come and go on these streets, but it still feels a little bit magical every time the city decides to put on its white coat. She walks the few steps back to her lavender-painted house, climbs the stairs carefully, and lets herself in to the soft, lamplit quiet of home. And you have taken your own walk through this snowy night in London without ever needing to leave your bed. You have stood at the window of a warm flat, watching snow turn the street below into something softer. You have felt the first crunch of snow beneath your boots, the coolness on your cheeks, the gentle weight of your coat and scarf. You have walked past pastel houses, sleeping windows, and small glowing doorways. You have traveled on Oliver's night bus, sat beside Raj, stepped into Amelia's bookshop, shared the warmth of Arjun's cafe, and seen the streets through Margaret's patient eyes. Now, your own night is ready to close gently around you. Imagine yourself back in that quiet flat above the Notting Hill street. You've hung up your coat, placed your boots neatly by the door, and turned off all the lamps except one. Your bed is waiting, sheets cool and smooth, pillows soft and familiar. You lie down, feeling the mattress rise up to meet you, supporting you fully from head to heel. Outside your window, London continues its soft, snowy breath. Far-off cars move like slow comets down distant roads. A train hums softly somewhere beyond the houses. A fox pads quietly along a garden wall, leaving neat footprints in the snow. But up here, in this room, you are perfectly still. Your eyelids are growing heavier now, like curtains being drawn across the end of a long, gentle play. Your breathing has found its own rhythm, not the rhythm of walking through the night, but the rhythm of a body finally ready to rest. You did enough today, more than enough. The city does not ask anything more of you tonight. You are allowed to let go, allowed to hand your worries to the snow outside. Let them drift down onto the quiet streets of Notting Hill and melt away by morning. Inside, you are warm, safe, and held. Somewhere in the distance, a bus turns a corner, its lights disappearing into the soft white. A bookshop sign rests against a darkened window. A hospital corridor glows behind closed doors. A small cafe switches off its lamps, chairs upturned on tables, floors swept clean. London is folding itself into sleep, street by street, house by house, room by room. And now it's your turn. Let your thoughts grow softer, like footsteps fading into fresh snow. Let your body grow heavier, like a blanket being laid gently over your shoulders. Let your mind follow the slow drift of the falling snowflakes, down, 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 into a deep, peaceful, restful sleep. Good night, my friend. London will be here when you wake. For now, you can let yourself disappear into dreams